All right, good evening, everybody. The Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of May 22nd, 2024 is now called to order. As we begin tonight's meeting, I request that staff would make a presentation regarding the town's rules of decorum and civility, please.
Thank you. For the benefit of the community, the Town of Los Gatos asks that you follow the town's meeting guidelines while attending town meetings and treat everyone with respect and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's then proceed with the roll call. As I say your name, please indicate your presence by saying here. Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Janoff.
Here.
Commissioner Mayer.
Here.
Vice Chair Thomas.
Here.
Thank you so much. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our own Commissioner Hanson.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. As the Planning Commission conducts the meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by members of the public. During our meeting, there will be two opportunities for members of the public to participate. First, during the verbal communications period, an individual may speak on any topic that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. And second, during the hearing tonight on agenda items, any items 3 and 4, any member of the public may speak about that particular item. You will be advised of the times when you may speak on these items. If you wish to address the Commission tonight during either the verbal communications time or when we consider the agenda items, please raise your hand in the Zoom app, or if you are here in person, please complete a yellow speaker card located in front of you and turn the card over to a staff member. Please print your name clearly, or if you are speaking anonymously, just write down your initials. When you speak, I ask that you come up to the microphone and speak directly into it. This is important because this meeting is being recorded. Also, when you are called to speak, please state your name and address for the record, or indicate that you are speaking anonymously. Okay, with that being said, we'll begin with the verbal communications portion of our meeting, during which members of the public are invited to address the Commission on any issue that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Staff will announce when your 3-minute time period is up. I have no speaker cards. Mr. Paulson, or any members on Zoom?
There are not.
Thank you so much. Then we will move to the consent calendar. Tonight we have two items on the consent calendar, being the approval of the minutes of our meetings on April 10, 2024 and May 8, 2024. Before the Planning Commission acts on the consent calendar, any member of the Commission may request that any item be removed. Are there any such requests from the Commissioners? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Maybe I'm out of order, but I do not wish to remove, but I do have an amendment. Motion is made.
Okay. Do you want to make that amendment now or after the motion is made?
Well, in advance, in the Historic Preservation Committee report by Ms. Burnett, it's attributed to me, Mr. Barnett.
Oh, okay.
Small change, but
thank you.
might as well be accurate.
Very good. Do I have a motion then to accept the consent calendar with the typographical or clerical error so amended? Do I have a motion from a commissioner? Oh, Vice Chair?
I move to accept the consent calendar, to approve the consent calendar with the requested changes.
Thank you for that motion. Do I have a second? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
I second that motion.
All right. I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please indicate so by raising your hand. And the vote is unanimous. Thank you all. Now we move to the public hearings portion of our agenda. Tonight, item number 3 is the consideration and the recommendation to the Town Council for the adoption of the draft revised 2023 through 2031 housing element. An environmental analysis based on the previously certified 2040 certified general plan final environmental impact report has been prepared for Los Gatos 2023 through 2031 housing element. The applicant is the Town of Los Gatos. This is the general plan amendment application GP-24-001. And I believe that Ms. Walters will be preparing the staff report.
Yes, good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. On May 3rd, the town received a letter from HCD stating that the town's draft revised housing element, which was submitted to HCD on March 18th per council's direction, along with specific technical modifications directed by HCD, meets the statutory requirements of the state housing law. The specific modifications directed by HCD can be found in Exhibit 5 in gray highlight. The requested modifications included adding language to Program AQ to reflect additional steps related to development of the Caltrans site, and modified language in the description of the Caltrans site as described in Appendix D. The draft revised housing element with specific technical modifications directed by HCD was made available to the public for a 7-day review period as required by Assembly Bill 215. Written comments received during the 7-day public review period are provided in Exhibit 7. The primary purpose of this agenda is for the Planning Commission to provide recommendations to Town Council on whether to adopt the draft revised housing element and adopt a resolution forwarding the recommendation to Town Council. Tentatively, on June 4th, Town Council will consider Planning Commission's recommendation on adoption of the draft revised housing element. Once adopted, the Town Council, by the Town Council, the housing element will be submitted to HCD for certification. Following the adoption and resubmittal, HCD does have 60 days to certify the housing element. So tonight, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to Town Council to adopt the draft revised housing element. You can find that in Exhibit 1, and the environmental analysis in Exhibit 2, and adopt the resolution forwarding the recommendation to Town Council to adopt the draft revised housing element in Exhibit 8. This concludes staff report. We're available for questions.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I just had one question about the letter from May 3rd from HCD, and it was about the non-vacant sites. And I do know, having been on the Housing Element Advisory Board, that we had to submit a substantial amount of documentation to HCD justifying that the non-vacant sites could become available for development. But the way that it's posed in the letter, the way I read it, is they're raising that as a question that might not really have an answer yet. But if I also interpret the paragraph at the top of page 2, it says absent findings, including adoption resolution, there could be an issue, but as long as it's adopted by. So what I'm asking, the question is there some standard that we should be applying that's more than what we've already done? Or is this just to say that we feel like we are there because we've submitted all the evidence?
Yes, if we submit all that, we have submitted all the evidence, and when we resubmit to HCD, we do have to include a resolution, and that has been included in tonight's packet and has been reviewed by legal to make sure it addresses all the points required by HCD.
And I will add, in addition, that if you do look at page 4 of 5 of the resolution, item 5 at the bottom of that page does specifically address this, specifically talking about the reasons, the substantial evidence on the record that these sites are likely to be redeveloped in the time planning period.
Okay. And just a quick follow-up question, if I might, Chair. At no point in time during this most recent process since the last submission have they raised an issue saying, I don't believe your non-vacant sites will become vacant?
No, they found that satisfactory.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none, we'll now invite comments from the public. If you have not already turned in a speaker card to the staff, please do so at this time, or raise your hand feature in Zoom. When you are called, please state your name and address for the record, and adjust the microphone so that you may be heard. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I don't have any members or any cards here before me. Are there any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item? Seeing none, Mr. Paulson. Anybody on Zoom?
There are not.
Thank you so much. Then I will close the public portion of this agenda item and then invite my commissioners to ask questions, invite discussion, and if appropriate, make a motion with respect to item number 3. I'll go ahead and begin just by stating I want to thank staff, members of the public, town council, members of this commission. This has been a long and arduous process to get this far. I know a great much effort, sweat, tears have been shed, and I want to thank everybody involved in the process. So thank you again. Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
If no one has any comments or questions, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to forward a recommendation of approval to adopt the housing element draft that has been submitted for public review most recently, and with no additional changes. And I do wanted to comment that I think that if we were to try and make any additional changes, well, first of all, the document's been through a lot of revisions. Second of all, anything that would cause any revision would have to be going back to public review and potentially additional review. So I think we should forward a recommendation of the document that we have in front of us.
Thank you. And just by point of clarification then, is your motion then to approve the draft revised housing element is attached as Exhibit 1, the environmental analysis as attached in Exhibit 2, together with the draft resolution, Exhibit 8?
Yes.
Very good. Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, I just want to make a comment. Yes, I think totally in favor of forwarding this to the town council with our recommendation. I also would like to address that it is essential that the environmental analysis prepared for the housing element in Exhibit 2 be followed with any new developments that come forward. On page 12, it specifically talks about new developments would not substantially degrade the visual character or quality of the town. And as we know, there are new laws that are coming about, but I would hope that we do our best to continue on maintaining the character of Los Gatos and doing all we can, being supported by our EIR and our new housing element. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And still have the motion before us. Commissioner Janoff, I saw your hand next.
I'd like to second the motion.
Very good. Thank you. Before I take the vote, Commissioner Burnett, I saw your hand raised down at the end. Oh, very good. All right.
To express my appreciation to staff, the public, the commission, and the council for their hard work. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion, commissioners? Although I'll call the motion. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And the motion passes unanimously. Again, thank you to all for your efforts on this matter. Staff, this is a recommendation, so no appeal rights, correct?
Correct.
Great, thank you. All right. Moving on then to item number 4, request for approval for demolition of an existing single-family residence and construction of a new single-family residence on property zone R1-8, located at 16510 Topping Way, APN 532-09-029, architecture and site application number 5-23-016. This project is categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA Section 15303. The property owner, Steve Bamberger and Susan McGovern, applicant, Eric Beckstrom, and project planner is Mr. Mullen. May I have a show of hands of those commissioners that have visited the site? Thank you all. Any disclosures on this item? Seeing none, Mr. Mullen, I presume you'll be providing a staff report this evening?
Yes, thank you and good evening. Before you this evening is a proposal to construct a new 2-story residence on Topping Way. The project site is located just west of Hilo Road and is currently developed with a single-story residence and a detached garage. The applicant proposes a 3,105 square foot residence with an attached garage in a traditional architectural style. Exterior materials include composition and standing seam metal roofing, clapboard, shiplap, and stucco siding, and metal-clad divided light windows. The proposed residence would be the 4th largest in terms of floor area when compared to the immediate neighborhood, and the 3rd largest in terms of FAR. The project meets all technical requirements of the town code and does not require any exceptions. The town's consulting architect provided a report recognizing that the proposed residence is very well designed and noted 2 concerns related to the window trim and the height and bulk of the projecting front gable. The consulting architect provided recommendations to address these concerns, to which the applicant responded by correcting the window trim depicted in the project drawings and providing letters of justification for the height and bulk of the roof form. After evaluating the complete application, staff forwarded the application to the Planning Commission to consider the project's compliance with the residential design guidelines for height and bulk as compared to other homes in the immediate neighborhood. Should the Planning Commission find merit in the request, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the architecture and site application subject to the recommended conditions of approval included in Exhibit 3. This concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mullen. Commissioners, any questions for staff on agenda item number 4? Seeing none, we'll then now invite the applicant to proceed. Ms. Armour, who will be speaking on behalf of applicant this evening?
Anyone who's here to speak on behalf of the applicant, you can come on up to the microphone.
And we just ask that you fill out a card following that. No, you can do it afterwards.
If you'll approach the podium, just give us your name for the record. Oh.
I was just visiting my daughter in the slums in Manila 2 days ago.
Oh.
Just one of those things.
No, that's fine. If you just, we have your name for the record.
Eric Beckstrom,
Thank you.
The architect. Sorry for taking so long. So thanks. Sean did a great description, and I've worked with Joel, Sean, and Jennifer, and the applicants or the owners here, Steve and Susan, with their lovely daughter Mia, who's been super involved, and she's more talented as an architect than me. Their 13-year-old daughter, and I'm serious. So we designed a kind of a traditional transitional style. You can see with the forms, it's broken up. Originally, they were actually going to do a larger house, about 1,000 square feet with an attached ADU. And then after a bunch of thinking about it, I don't want to say which one of them, but both of them, they came to an agreement, hey, let's just make this a little smaller to make just for themselves. So, and then in terms of as Sean mentioned, the consulting architect made a question about the front gable. And so we actually lowered the whole house by 15 inches, not just the gable, but the whole house, which I'll be blunt, we don't need to do. I mean, I do traditional historic projects. I don't want to bore you, but I've worked on 800-year-old churches in England. I've worked all over the place. And this house fits with, Hilo, Marchmont, all the houses. There's houses that are much larger, have a lot more face. And then I'm actually going to jump onto something even bigger because I talked to Joel about this. I actually think it could be confusing, the neighborhood guidelines that tries to compare a house in Los Gatos to just 5 houses around it. Because this area was orchards in the 50s. I mean, it was Indian land, for 15,000 years. Then it was orchards, or it was actually grazing land for the Mexicans that were here. Then it was orchards up until the 50s. And as you drive around, you look at the one-story houses. They're just, really cheap GI houses. But most of them have insulation. I do a lot of work on these houses. So they're really poor housing stock. In direct comparison to historic Los Gatos, and I'm going to keep going because I'm the only time I get to say it. So it's really, the history of America was founded by building cities and towns. Suburbs are an invention from really the post-World War II. And they came about because of cars. So people go to Los Gatos to eat dinner downtown. Why? Because it's cozy and dense and there's a lot of activity. And also, I happen to live in Loma Alta neighborhood, and Johnson, if you go there at Halloween, is just packed with Halloween revelers. The kids aren't going, oh my God, it's scary, it's dense, Mom, we shouldn't be on the street because the houses are too big, there's too many gables, they aren't, have families, calling into the city saying it's really dangerous. And I'm being facetious, but I'm actually being, as a resident of Los Gatos, I think I have a place to say this. So, urban design in the rest of the country is really focused on density and street frontage. And that's why Johnson Street, and Tate Street, where all the Halloween, because there's a recognizable face, which means houses aren't back from the street. It's the opposite. They're closer to the front, and so you can see your neighbor. And the other benefit in today's world is, 2-story is, it's less coverage on the ground. So you have better percolation of the aquifer, more trees, more everything. I could go on and on and on because I build, I do landscaping, I do everything. So I'm a doer, I'm not just a talker. So I think sometimes the read your neighborhood guide or how it's being interpreted, I'd say by the consulting architect that seems to use Google Earth maybe and not walk around, is that you really, if you look at the whole neighborhood, it's super dense. And I'm actually, all the things I'm saying right now is not in defense of this design. I'm saying this for the whole town. Because Joel kind of gave me permission to go ahead and talk about this. You know, we did, no, I mean, because it's, I don't want to push anything, but I'm also a Los Gatos resident. And when I did my house, there were some comments from the consulting architect. I'm going, wait, I'm not sure he knows much about urban design or even residential design. I'm not putting him down. I worked at Payne Partners at the Pyramid in the Louvre, you know, the Paris. I worked at that office when we did that. When I was working there, I probably couldn't have designed a bedroom. Because when you do commercial architecture, it's a totally different fish. It's like being an orthopedic surgeon and then working on another part of the body. So residential architecture and urban design is really it's something you need a lot of experience in. And I'll say this is the negative thing. If you don't get it right, you actually go the wrong way. If you don't support dense two-story houses with faces on the street, just like Johnson Street and Tate and, you know, Los Gatos. So we're totally blessed to have, you know, this kind of structure and fabric here. There's a lot of I mean, Saratoga, where my girlfriend lives, is like, we have friends over there and they all want to live in Los Gatos. Why? Because we're cool? No, because it has this sense of neighborhood. So thank you for listening. Oh, last thing, it is amazing, as I've always said, to work with Joel, Jennifer, and Sean. There's nothing quite like it. So I say that like from the bottom of my heart. I have so much gratitude because projects are better because we work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. And I'm sure you want to sit down because of your ribs, but before you do, if you could stand for one.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Fellow commissioners may have comments or
Yeah,
questions.
sure, please. Thank
Any
you.
commissioners, questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Janoff.
Normally I would wait, but just a couple of clarifications. Exhibit 7, page 871, which we read carefully. Exhibit 8, page 889. You don't need to worry about this.
Okay.
I'll explain.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Exhibit 12, page 899, show three different, it's a three-dimensional view of the proposed house. Two of those have two gables in the front.
Yes.
And one of them, which is in Exhibit 12, has the two shed roofs on either side of the primary gable. My question to you is, which one is it?
Sure. Then there's one of my diagrams where I tried to show how the evolution of how the house is.
It wasn't the
There's
sketches.
no change in this. Can you, if I can walk, if you can show me visually, because otherwise I'm just.
Actually, before you do, Mr. Paulson, is there a chance we can get something put on the screen?
Let me give you a page number, 871. Oh, Exhibit 7. Yeah.
And Mr. Engstrom, I believe that microphone disconnects. If you want to sit down and take it, is that easier for you?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Just go ahead and sit in the first row.
Oh, the house on the left is the proposed design. The house on the right is a house we did on Inglewood. That was their inspiration. That's why they contacted us, because they did neighborhood walks. And Jennifer was the planner on that. That's for Amanda and Clay
Actually,
Wayman.
I don't
Maybe that's
think
not it.
so. Check page, I don't know if a page number helps you more.
Oh, sure. 871?
871
Yeah.
or 889. Show,
899.
well, those two show two gables, a small gable where you have a shed roof in Exhibit 12. My question is, which is the design? Is it the central gable with the two sheds, or a bigger gable and a single shed?
Our page numbers aren't quite matching up.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's the same. It's all the same rendering.
This cable's missing.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's a bigger house. I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
My question is,
It's the one, it doesn't have it's not a gable.
so
Actually, it's a shed.
exhibit 12 is the proposed
Yes.
design.
I'm so,
No apologies necessary,
Yeah,
just a
but-
clarification. Okay.
Through the chair, we now on the screen have the rendering that's on the first page of the project plans. I believe this, with the 2 shed roofs on either side, is what's proposed.
Very good. And so, Mr. Engstrom, can you confirm then what's on the screen before us? That's your proposed project.
yes, and that, just to confirm, that's also on all the elevations too, that drawing.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification. And Commissioner Giano, thank you for that question.
Oh, sorry, you're like an osprey. Which is great.
Thank you. Okay, with that clarification, commissioners, any other questions for, yes, Commissioner Burnett?
Is there room to move back the house?
What would be the purpose of that, Richard? Why would you?
To make the face of the house less prominent on the street?
So, as I just mentioned, because they tried to do that on my house, on Loma Alta, we tried to move my house 8 feet, and I think you were the one that voted against approving our house. If we had moved our house back on my house, Loma Alta, our oak tree would have suffered, but nobody would understand that. So there's no benefit to the lot to do that. There's no benefit to the street. There's a house that's black, that's got a gable, that's 2-story. It's closer to the street. So if you drive around just on Topping, there's houses that are just, so there's no, I mean, it's not like that, I don't want to be snarky. There's no adverse effect. It's almost the opposite of what I just said about of houses in America in terms of the street wall. So this is basically in the same front, but this house, there's the porch is sticking out front. The surface is back further. The second floor is back another like 10 feet. Does that make sense? So we could move it back, but I don't know. We just take more yard away from Maya, and I don't know that it. Does that make sense?
So do you know the distance from the proposed house to the setback in the rear?
I don't have the plans with me right now.
I looked for that, but couldn't find it.
Wait, you're asking for
Through
what?
the chair, the project plans show that I've got the wrong sheet. 25, to the setback would be 25 feet 9 1/4 inches to the rear of the house.
And we have shared on the screen the streetscape showing the setbacks of the other houses in the neighborhood to support this discussion.
Oh,
And that's the existing, right?
That's the,
yeah.
Is that's the existing?
That's
yeah,
existing.
we'll correct
Okay,
that.
so
and
that's
bring
where
up-
it is right now.
Yes.
And then
Here's the proposed.
here's the proposed. So most of the house, no, that's also says existing.
Let me find you the right
Actually,
sheet.
just
And Commissioner Barnett, were you asking for the rear setback? How big the rear setback was
That's
to the
correct.
house?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on sheet A 1.2, it looks like it's approximately 45, 46 feet, the rear setback currently to the house.
And what would be the limit according to the ordinances?
The minimum is 20.
Very good. Commissioners, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, thank you. So, of course, we're the Planning Commission, so we go by our current design guidelines. And we're looking at this street, Topping Way, and of course, there's 23 homes on there, and quite a few of them, I think at least 8, do have second stories. But the second stories seem to blend in. They're set back. They're almost unnoticeable. There's only one house, and that's in the middle of the street. It's the 7th house down. So it's farther away from your project, and it is very different in design, whatever. But so when we're asking about setbacks, I think what we're thinking about and asking you, with the large gable, and I know it seems like you do like gables, seeing some of your previous projects, and I know you talk about your home on Loma Alta and everything, but we're actually talking about Topping Way.
Right.
So would it be, your lot is quite large, it's over 10,000 square feet.
Yes.
And maybe to give some relief in some streetscape so that it would go along with the other homes. And I know you sort of described the other homes as, what did you say, low design and low, there's another word you described. But, so I'm just wondering, is there a way you could design it so that it would be not quite as in bulk and mass?
I think it already, that's what I guess I'm going to, oh, sorry. It already does that. I'm not trying to, just let me just talk a couple sentences and just, so the second floor, there's a porch roof on the front, right? It's only in the far right where it's actually 2-story. Then there's a porch roof. So the gable's actually pushed back because there's a roof that goes across the whole front. Do you see, if you look at the drawings in the 3D? Can you go back to the, I'm not trying to make snake oil. I'm just trying to describe the shape. Do you have a?
No, I was just talking about maybe adjusting the large gable. I think that's what's
It sticks
adding
out.
to the bulk and the mass.
Yeah, so I think we're focused on it. The front gable sticks out 2 feet from a shed dormer that goes across the whole front. So the consulting architect actually wanted to get rid of the gable, right? And actually get rid of it and have it be a gable, which if you look around all that examples I gave you, there's houses with 3 gables, bigger gables, and that are bigger all around. So this gable sticks out 2 feet from the face of that shed dormer formed. You following? I mean, I feel like I'm not arguing against you. I'm just trying to describe. Oh yeah, sorry. Here, thank you. So this sticks out 2 feet from this. Here's this porch roof in front. Here's, in a sense, this is a shed dormer, if you will, and then we break it up, actually let this roof come forward just so it's punctuated. You see that on this bracket? So this is the same form. And again, this whole roof is down 15 inches now. The whole thing I dropped, but I didn't pay for another rendering. So this roof also is that same plane, and then I pop it out some, and then it comes down. There's another form here. See that? So basically in the history, what this would have been, they would have done a roof all the way across here at this steep pitch. Then later you add a shed dormer. That's the history of American residential houses. You go across, and then later you add this. So this thing sticks out 2 feet from that. So if you're asking me to push this back, is that what you're asking, or the whole house? I'm sorry if I'm not understanding.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm on fumes
It's what
too.
Commissioner Barnett had brought up about maybe actually having more frontage.
Just move the house. Is that what you're saying? Just shift the whole house back 2 feet?
That could be one part.
Sure. So you'd like it to move that if yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how it works now. If the clients are here, if they just agree to it, or what, or I don't know how to design and
Sorry. Would you like, you can have a second, you're the only other agenda item. If you want to spend a second to speak with your
Yeah.
client, that would be fine.
Is there anything I want to make sure? And I'm just like on 30%.
Yeah.
Full.
Yeah. And actually what we're going to do, first of all, let me ask commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, what we'll do then is, if you want to speak with your client, I'm going to invite other members of the public to speak during this time, and then you'll have an opportunity to address us once again. Thank you again for all your comments.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
All right. Thanks. So I've indicated members of the public are welcome to speak on this agenda item. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. I don't have any yellow cards, but I see a yellow card walking down the aisle now. Thank you. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Lee Quintana. I thought we didn't need to give our address.
It's not necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Just have a few comments. I believe that the design guidelines were designed so that when houses were modified or enlarged, that there was an evolution going on, but at the same time, that evolution was conscious of the surrounding neighborhood so that the houses didn't stick out, but it becomes a gentle evolution rather than I call it a revolution of going from a small house to a very large house, or one that seems very large. And so I believe that the design guidelines very specifically define the neighborhood that's supposed to be considered. And in this case, while the design and the consulting architect's design may have made it slightly more compatible with the neighborhood, it doesn't make it compatible. It's just more compatible. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And when I looked at the house, and when I looked at the concept of the evolution of houses in the neighborhood, the first two illustrations seemed to be an evolution, and the third one seemed to be more of a revolution. And the big difference that I saw was with the garage. If you take the garage off of that house and put it in the back where it currently is, and where a lot of houses have their garages, it would not be quite as prominent. But also, there is room to move back the second story, so it's not quite as impressive as you see it. What else did I want to say? Yeah, and this is a neighborhood that's in transition, but transition to me means gradual, not big steps, but little steps. And the other thing I wanted to say is the discussion from the architect about denser. Denser means more houses, not bigger houses. There's a distinction there, how you look at it. And in this case, it may be denser because the building is bigger, but it doesn't provide the density that we have in the downtown that promotes more community. So that's just an aside. It really doesn't make any difference to design. It's just the difference in the concept of thinking.
Thank you so much for those comments. Commissioners, any questions? No, thank you, Ms. Quintana. Any other questions from the public or comments from the public? None in. Mr. Paulson, anybody on Zoom?
There is not.
Thank you very much. Then I'll invite applicant to reapproach. I'm sorry? For applicants closing, if you wish to reapproach, you have an additional 3 minutes to speak. It could be anybody on the applicant's team. Anybody from your side can speak. If you just state your name for the record, please.
Hi, yeah. My name is Steve Bamberger. I'm one of the two property owners. My other half is sitting over there. We appreciate the opportunity to come here, and obviously we've been through, as you all know, I imagine, quite a journey in trying to do the house. There are a few things that we would welcome you considering. So the first is we've tried to be very conscious not to overbuild and to try to keep it from being too cumbersome. In fact, the first round we went that you all never saw, we had, I think, an additional net all in another 1,000 square feet or something like that, inclusive of an ADU. And Susan actually said, I think this house is too ponderous. It's too big for the neighborhood. We don't want something that looks like that. And so that was one of the reasons why we scaled back, even though so many of the houses in our neighborhood are being built with more square footage. So I guess one thing to consider is we've tried to be very, very conscious of not overbuilding the property. With respect to moving the house back, we also worked with our architect on trying to not have the front be too big, and as Eric said, have the big gable be set back a little bit. We respectfully asked not to have to move the whole house back. One of the things we love about our lot, you pointed out, it's not an enormous lot. It's far from the biggest one on the block, but we love the fact that there's going to be room for a backyard, a 10-year-old daughter who will have enough room and places to plant and places for the dogs and kids to run. And so we'd really like to do everything that we can to preserve as much backyard space as possible. So, I guess that's my ask of the commission, is that be taken into account, and our, concern for really trying not to overbuild. I'd also note that there are houses in, even the two houses that are directly across the street. One is the one right in front of us as you stand on our front porch, and then the one directly to the right of that. So, sort of very, very immediate neighborhood are large, and I think in at least one of those cases bigger than what we're thinking of. So we don't really have, at least on our property, we don't really have the chance to evolve from where we are right now. We definitely need to do some work. And so, again, respectfully asking that we not have to push the whole thing back, really for no other reason than just we want to preserve as much backyard space as we can. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Bamberger, before you sit down, commissioners, any
Yeah.
questions or comments for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Janoff.
This is, I'm missing the front of the mic, so sorry for the feedback. Completely different question, different topic. There are elements of your design that call for a standing seam roof element. Are those still in the final design?
Wow, am I the wrong guy to answer that question?
Just a portion. Yeah. So this may be a nit, but we've heard it from applicants in the past or their neighbors that a standing seam roof can be hit with quite a bit of sunshine, a lot of glare, and it's unintended, of course. You don't mean to blind your neighbors. But what I would like to know is if you would be amenable to a condition of approval that indicates if there is an issue with glare from the standing seam roofs, you would be amenable to addressing that to eliminate the glare.
Yeah, how about this, which is even better, because we have it in Carmel, which is even, you guys are amazing, just so you know, compared to Carmel, because we have this talk. We're using low glare standing seam roof. So there's a few of the colors that are low glare to exactly deal with what you're talking about, so you don't get all the reflectance. So we can add that as a condition, exactly. So
thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? And I'll just go ahead and again, I'm not sure which person on your team is the best to answer this. I understand you've done neighborhood outreach. You've spoken with some of your neighbors. Can you give us a synopsis of their responses, their feelings towards your projects as presented?
We've done some lightweight outreach, and so far, nobody has really presented any material challenges for us. We know our neighbors to the right and in front of us, and nobody has mentioned any issues. We've certainly, invited comments, and the story polls have been up for longer than normal, I think, because of some confusion on when the hearing was going to be and everything. So I think they've been up for 45, 60 days at this point. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicants? Seeing none, thank you again. You may be seated. And I'll then close the public portion of this agenda item and invite discussion from my fellow commissioners, questions, comments, and if appropriate, a motion. Yes, Vice Chair.
I would first like to thank you guys for all the material and presenting and being willing to discuss and answer questions kind of on the spot. So thank you. And thank you, Sean, for prepping our materials tonight. I, understand why the consulting architect, like part of that person's job is to be a critical lens. And so I appreciate the addressing of the, window concern, the correction of the window issue, and then also the lowering by 1 foot 3 inches. I think that can just help a little bit. However, I don't really have any issues with this project. I think the low glare roof is a great idea to add as a condition of approval, but it sounds like, that's something that as an applicant, you want to be friendly neighbors to include. I would not suggest moving the property back for multiple reasons. One, I don't think that it's necessary with regards to maintaining the character of the neighborhood or and I think that it will just create more issues with privacy. I wouldn't feel comfortable voting for that and sending that on to the next level, because that would actually not allow for neighbors to give input about where the house is located. And right now, I mean, it's hard to tell with just the story poles, but especially the neighbors in the rear, like the house is now going to be closer to them, and there's possibility of windows looking into yards. And I know that from being on the planning commission now for a number of years, that is typically a major concern that neighbors have, and the location of where windows are next door. So if we're saying like move the house back 5 or 10 feet, that totally shifts all of that. And I feel like it doesn't accomplish much. So I'm not in favor of requesting any changes other than the low glare roof at this point.
Thank you for those comments. Commissioner Hanson.
I've been on the planning commission quite a long time, and we many years ago had a hearing on another property on Topping Way that was very contentious, and I have vivid recollection of having a room full of neighbors from Topping Way, and it's a very active community. I play tennis with one of the wives of the people that live in your neighborhood, and they. When this particular hearing came up, the intent was to build a monstrous kind of house, and so the neighbors were very vocal about it. My friend that plays tennis with me said we actually remodeled our home and left it at 1,000 square feet because we didn't want to affect the neighborhood. Where I'm going with this is that if the neighbors were really objecting to your project, we would have a room full of neighbors, I believe. So, and we're not hearing that, and so I'd like to also echo our vice chair's comment too, that whenever you move something, then you could create an unintended consequence. So I feel satisfied that you've met all the requirements, and I was kind of looking through the packet looking for neighborhood comments because you've had story polls up, and I didn't see any. So I think that it's a good project, and I think it's well designed, and I think it will fit within the neighborhood. And I appreciate the fact that you took it down and recognized for yourselves that it needed to fit in a little bit better. So you're there.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Janoff.
Yes, I agree, and I would echo the comments of my fellow commissioners. The house is well designed. I actually was a little bit surprised at the consulting architect's suggestion of putting shed roofs across it. It just kind of made it kind of want to be mid-century odd, and it didn't make too much sense to me. But I'm glad you do have 2 shed roofs because the 2 gables was a little odd. So I think it's well done. The placement of the house, it's already meeting the 25-foot setback, plus you've got a porch, plus you've got the elevation of the portion of the second story that's forward, and then you've got the mass of the house even farther back. So it does articulate pretty nicely, I think, and that will make a difference in terms of its overall massing. Thank you for addressing the windows. That seemed to be just a little glitch. And I would say, especially with young children, you want to have as much yard as you can possibly have, usable yard. Some people these days aren't comfortable having kids playing out front. You've got a beautiful opportunity to create a lively play area, family area in the back, and I wouldn't move it. Again, I think that we have no neighborhood complaints is telling. Usually that begins the discussion of, okay, what changes might we need to make in order to try to make everyone happy. We don't have that problem tonight. So I'm in support of the project as proposed. And I'd also like to thank you for the extensive historical tutorial regarding the development of housing in America. Having served on the Historic Preservation Committee, as some of my fellow commissioners have, it's an interesting reminder of the evolution of houses. So thank you for that.
Thank you for those comments. Commissioner Burnett.
I apologize, but I was remiss in not asking the applicant about the width of the trim on the windows, which seemed to be a big issue for Mr. Cannon, and I did not see that issue addressed. So maybe.
Before opening up, I just want to check with staff. I believe that has already been rectified between the applicant and town. To the architect's satisfaction?
Yes, thank you for that question. The trim was a drafting error in the CAD file, I guess, on the very first iteration of the plans, and has been addressed and now meets the residential design guidelines.
Reminder.
Thank you. Does that address your concerns? Any further questions?
Yeah, the applicant has made quite a few comments about the architect, the consulting architect being primarily in commercial. And I was wondering if staff could comment about the length of time that Mr. Cannon has been a consultant for Los Gatos on residential projects.
The architectural consultant who works with the town has been working with the town for more than 10 years at this point. He helped us develop our residential design guidelines.
Thank you for that. If I can add comments, I agree with my fellow commissioners that the house is reasonable for the neighborhood. It's been pointed out in the staff report that it's significantly smaller in FAR and square footage than some of its neighbors. I appreciate that the applicant has voluntarily decided to make the house somewhat smaller than originally conceived. And I agree that, well, moving the house back on the lot is possible. It didn't strike me in looking at the neighborhood that the frontage of the house was that imposing. So with those comments, I'll pass to other commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. So, yeah, after reading our consulting architect here at Los Gatos, who's been here for over 10 years and helped, do our design guidelines, I still feel that the home, and bringing it back, like I had mentioned, was just in conversation. It was just maybe a suggestion. I would agree that it would be imposing on maybe a backyard neighbor and whatever, so that has its issues. I just feel that, and I agree with our architect, that it has too much bulk and mass for the considerations that we talk about in our design guidelines. So for that reason, I wouldn't be able to vote for it. I think that you could do a better design than that very large gable in front. I think that is the issue. Maybe not the shed design that our architect designed, but somehow softening that in some way, I think would do a lot. Because I think the design in general is nice. I think it is a good design. But I think there's something with that. When you look at the house, when you look at the design, all you see is this large gable, and I know you say the size of it and whatever, but it still, to me, seems imposing, and it's very different than all the other homes on the street that have a second story. So those would be my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Mayer.
First of all, thank you to the applicant and architect for providing nice 3D renderings, which oftentimes I'm surprised we don't see more often. Oftentimes we just get a flat 2D elevation and have to go off of that. So I appreciate the effort you guys put into producing these nice three-dimensional rendering graphics. In terms of moving the house, pushing it back, I don't really think that's necessary. This design is compliant with all the zoning regulations in terms of setbacks, height limit, FAR, and so forth. So I think it's pretty well cited. Now, regarding the issue of the gable in the front, I don't necessarily agree with the consulting architect's take here. I appreciate that they're reviewing the project through the lens of the residential design guidelines. But those are guidelines, and we're at the Planning Commission to give our thoughts and interpretations of the consulting architect's interpretation. And I actually prefer the gable look. I know it's a bit bold, but I'm wondering if some of the reason that some other commissioners are perceiving the front gable as too strong is because of the deep eaves of the gable roof. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask a question of the applicant if they had considered looking at different depths of the eave over the gable, and I guess the justification for why the depth. I'm not exactly sure how deep it is.
So the commission could reopen the public hearing.
I'll reopen it for the purposes of, if the applicant answered that question, the depth of the eaves on the gable, if you know.
Could you use the mic so that the conversation is recorded?
Thank you. Thank you for all the comments. You guys don't know I deal with other cities, and everybody here is a brainiac. So it's just crazy how thorough you guys are. I mean, it's like amazing to behold. Okay. So it's like asking me, I've just spent a year and a half, and when I designed, that's gone through like 30 revisions, and I'm an architect that doesn't design for me. So if I design your house, I'm going to do 100 revisions so that you're happy, not me. So there's like, it's not like I just do it and say that's it. Does that make sense? So that on the front, that main gable, there's some brackets.
Right.
So if we got rid of the brackets, then we'd pull it back, the gable. I mean, the eave. It's called the rake, actually. So the rake is when it goes up on an angle. So that's a rake. So we could pull it back a foot or so if we got rid of the brackets. The brackets, ironically, are introduced to actually add some more scale breaking to the whole house. So we could do it, but actually then I'd get rid of all the brackets, because then it would seem like, God, I want to get into styles. It would kind of be a slightly different style, and then I'd probably get rid of the brackets on the shed dorms, which is fine, but it's almost like it's hard to respond on a microphone, in front of you. But am I giving an answer that's helpful?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say no.
I just wanted to know the justification.
I'm a people pleaser, so it's really hard to not please all of you. That's the main point.
I just wanted to know what the thought process was
No,
behind that.
thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you.
That's it. No, that
That
makes
answers your
sense.
question?
Yes, it does. And the brackets, I think it's a nice detail as well. But I think, I wouldn't recommend pushing that back. I think that's maybe why some people are perceiving that to be more prominent than it is. But I do appreciate the detail and the brackets.
Hey, we'll add this though. The part we're talking about for all of you is 0.04% of the mass of the entire project. So that gable is it's a half of 1%. It's 14 foot wide. The gable down the street, 4 houses down, is about 4 feet wider, and it's a full 2-story gable. If you go around the neighborhood, that's why I'd like to walk with you guys just through the neighborhood. I don't care about this project, any project, because it's really hard. We can start talking about ideas in our head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Public portion, just to answer that one question.
That answers my question. I have some more comments.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, that answered my question about the gable. I kind of like it. To be honest with you. So I would disagree with the consulting architect's comment here. And my last comment actually is about, I know there are some comments from both the applicant and the public about the idea of neighborhood density. And we've discussed the evolution of this project. It used to be, I guess, it was 1,000 square feet larger. But it sounds like part of the 1,000 square feet larger project also included an accessory dwelling unit. Now, there's been some conversation here amongst the commissioners about wanting to right-size the house and lower the FAR. I just want to make a more general comment that I'm okay with more FAR if it's including another unit of housing. I'm not saying that the applicant should, change it and add the ADU back or whatever, but I'm just saying as more of a general comment, let's keep that in mind and not, say, oh, the house is too big because it's 4,000 square feet, but it has 1,000 square foot ADU attached to it. To me, that's better than not having an ADU. So I just want to make that clarification.
Thank you for those comments. Commissioners, any other questions, comments? Or do I see a motion? Yes, Commissioner Janoff.
I can make a motion.
Thank you.
You can see. I move to approve The request for demolition of an existing single-family residence and construction of a new single-family residence on property zoned R18 APN 53209-029, categorically exempt pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. The address is 16510 Topping Way. Architecture and site application S23016. I can make the findings for CEQA. I can make the required findings for the demolition of existing structures. I can find that we're in compliance with the zoning regulations and that we're in compliance with the residential design guidelines, and can make the considerations and review of architecture and site applications. And it has, per Exhibit 2, and this would be to approve the conditions of approval in Exhibit 3 with the addition of a condition worded however staff feels appropriate to mitigate any glare due to the standing seam roofing, and the project as presented in Exhibit 12.
Thank you for that motion. Any second? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion. Commissioners, questions, comments? Seeing none, then by a show of hands, those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. And those opposed? Thank you. The motion carries 5-1, 6-1. 6-1. Sorry. Appeal rights.
So that motion carries 6-1 with Commissioner Burnett voting no. The decision of the commission can be appealed to the town council by any interested person as defined by Town Code Section 2910-020 within 10 days on forms available online with fees paid. Final deadline is 4 p.m. on the 10th day.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your application. That closes the public portion of tonight's agenda. We'll now move to the report from the Community Development Director. Ms. Armour, do we have any report?
I have nothing to report this evening.
Very good. With that said, then subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, each commissioner serves on a committee. Have there been any subcommittee meetings since our last Planning Commission meeting, and are there any reports? Yes, Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, we did have a Historic Preservation Committee today meeting, and we had 2 items, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you again to all involved for another successful meeting. Again, special thanks to those working on the housing element. Again, a long process brought to, I think, a great success. I wish to express my personal thanks and thanks on behalf of planning commissioners to all. So with that being said, I'll adjourn tonight's meeting.